buggers just don't want to die. And by the way, Susan Rowland, the chairman of the provincial task force that was created by the Premier, used those very words to explain why there's an issue with the pension plan. You old buggers just don't want to die. And talking about you old buggers, there's bathrooms back there, and I don't know about you, but I use them. So if you want to know where the bathrooms are, they're right back there. My name is Clifford Kennedy, and I'm a batter's boy. Yeah. Oh, I should have said no, but I'm not from Miramichi. My brother used to race in the Miramichi, but I'm a batter's boy. How do you like that, batters? Huh? You like that accent, don't you? Yeah, she says I do. Okay. Like I said, my name is Clifford Kennedy. The chairman of our coalition is Bill Ayer. We have the gentleman that's been organizing all of our 12 sessions throughout the province of New Brunswick, Mr. Glenn Wilson, a former NB Power employee. We have Norm Laverty, and Norm is a former superintendent of pensions. So if you want to know the ins and outs and the very specifics and details, and if you like arithmetic, you're his best buddy, because he's a mathematician, okay? Now, we represent the coalition. The coalition is just a body of people that just came together after the February 20th or 23rd announcement by the Premier that this was a done deal, that the province was moving from a defined benefits pension program to a shared risk pension program. And that kind of shocked a few of us. And that he was promoting it as his legacy to be. Well, to me, it's not a legacy that you want. Especially when you have retirees throughout the province of New Brunswick that are going to say, wait a second, you have done what? And what permits you to do that? And you're impacting on who? My pension? Your pension? Ain't going to happen. Now, before we go any further, there are a number of people that we need to thank. First of all, the Knights of Columbus Hall. And there's a Mr. Dave Flynn, a Debbie Frost, and by the way, if Debbie is here,
right here.
Debbie, okay, now I recognize you. The Facebook page is the work of Debbie, and it's a lot of work, a lot of dedication, and thank you very, very much. There's Reg Carroll, Hal Muck, Jim Lockerbie, Nancy Blair Vesey, and Thelma Corney. Absolutely, you can make a quick comment.
It won't take long. Just Debbie, just so you know, the provincial government, they look at that Facebook page all the time. And probably you know that. And they're spending a lot of time looking at it, seeing who's on there and everything. That's why it's important. That's what a lot of the communications people do. So we really appreciate that.
And we welcome people to join the Facebook page at any time.
And like Debbie says, she welcomes people to join over and over throughout the province of New Brunswick to join the page. And we'd also like to thank, this is the second MLA in the entire province of New Brunswick that has taken the time out of his schedule to show up at a meeting. And Bill Fraser, thank you very much. Two MLAs, Roger Melanson in Dieppe. We had a totally francophone meeting the other day on Friday. And not only that, he said a few words, and if you want to say a few words, you'll be welcome to do so. Now I'd like to pass the microphone on to the chair. He'll say a few words, and then I'll begin the presentation.
Thank you, Clifford. And I thank everyone for coming here on a wet night to join us to learn some more about the situation that we are in as pensioners that we found ourselves in. Not by our own choosing, certainly, but one that we are caught up in. I just want to say that over the years I worked 30 years for the province of New Brunswick. I started in '73 and I finished in 2002, almost 30. I was a biologist, a water biologist for the province in all those years. I did a number of different jobs, and during that period I spent quite a bit of time in this area working on the Miramichi, on water classification with MRIAC, as it's called here, the Miramichi Environmental River Commission. And I also did some work on the well fields for this side of the river and again on the other side of the river. And I also, believe it or not, my wife's family is a Casey family from Barnaby River. And so I got involved in searching her genealogy up here at St. Michael's at the museum. So I feel very comfortable with the people of the Miramichi and this area. The other thing I did a little bit of playing up here as well. I did an awful lot of curling in my time. Perhaps my wife wished I hadn't done so much. But I did quite a bit anyway, and it was always a good time when we came to the Miramichi. So anyway, during that 30-year period that I worked as a biologist for the city, for the province, I always felt good about what I did, and I always gave it my best and put myself into it. And I always felt that with all the governments that came along, that when my time came to leave, that I would get my retirement without any question. And we didn't work at the same rates that some of the biologists out in the private sector did, but that was all right because number one, I enjoyed my work. I worked for the people and the province, and I also realized that there would be a retirement at the end of the day. That's what I was told when I started, and that's what I was told when I finished. You vested, this is going to be your retirement. And these are going to be the increments you will receive as you move ahead based on the cost of the consumer price index and the cost of living agreements. But this is the first government that I've had experience with that has actually, I feel, have betrayed me. They have not come through with their agreements. They're now reneging. They're going backwards on the agreements they want to take. What we're worried about is they're going to involve themselves in our basic guarantee of our pensions with the province. We may not get all of our base benefits in our retirements, and we may not get cost of living at the same rate that we did that was agreed to. So there are some things that concern us greatly. We are about 30,000 strong in these various sections of the public PSSA, we call it, the teachers plan, and some other plans. We may make up about 30,000 employees with guarantees of our retirements that I mentioned earlier. If you take our spouses and you add that to it, we probably doubled, 60,000. If you take some family members, probably 75. We think we represent somewhere in that vicinity of 75,000 people. That's a significant number of people in this province, and we're all adults. We all know how to vote, believe me. And so we're well aware what situation we're in. If you take a look at the adults that are voting age in the province, we probably have about 450,000 voting age adults. Out of that, 50% may vote. So now you're down to 225,000. You compare our 75,000 with the 225,000, that's about 1 in 3. So now we feel that we can be a force, we can be have an impact on the dynamics of the political situation in this province now and moving ahead. So so that's important to us. As I said, we are concerned about some of these things that these people will explain a lot better than I about guarantee and things of that nature. Keep in mind that at the end, around the 1st of March, we didn't exist. And we've only been around really for just a little over 2 months. And in that period, we've done a number of things. We've set up a website, and we've been traveling all around the province. We have met and engaged thousands of people, literally. We have, and these people have had great interest in what's going on, asked wonderful questions, and we've done our best to answer them. One of the things that has happened is beginning, I think, to change, but we've had no communications or no consultation until very recently I asked, where's the information upon which you're basing this whole endeavor that you're doing? And the government, and McCrossan, who is the actuary, the top guy from Toronto, we can talk a little more about that later. But anyway, he has said that we don't have a report. We haven't even got a report. We never finished the report. So there is no report on all of this, all of these actions, that all these thousands of people are being impacted and their families with no driver, no report in the government. I think in the stuff that I did when I was working, if the deputy didn't get a report from me on an endeavor of this magnitude, I probably wouldn't be around. I wouldn't have gotten through 30 years. In any case, no report. And they said we were too busy going to St. John, going to Fredericton, and now with the government, trying to put these people into this shared risk pension plan against their will, particularly with us in the government, in the PSSA and the TPA. So that's of great concern to us. And now we number, with the coalition, we're over 2,000 now, and growing. And we're probably going to reach 3,000 not too long from now, in terms of the number we have on our website and that have joined our forces. So this thing has mushroomed considerably in less than 3 months. And that's important too, that when we consider all things taken into consideration. So I'm going to leave it right there. I'm going to pass the mic on, and thank you very much for everything.
Thank you very much. Est-ce qu'il y a des personnes francophones dans la salle? Est-ce que vous préférez recevoir l'information en français ou est-ce que la présentation anglaise va être suffisante? Anglaise suffisante? I love cooperation. And I believe every Anglophone here understood exactly what I said. There we go, I love it. Man, oh man, New Brunswick is a great place, isn't it? Okay, that's out of the way. Second thing. We are a coalition of volunteers who are retired. I've got 30 years of public service, 4 in municipal government and 26 in the provincial government. And I retired 9 years ago. So not bad for an 85-year-old, huh? You believe that? I've got a bridge to sell. Anyways, so we're volunteers. We're not paid to go around the province. We decided on our own to go around the province because nobody was talking to us or you. And as a matter of fact, did you know what we're going to be talking about tonight? I don't think so. And unless you hear from people that attended meetings and you receive calls and emails, you've been on Debbie's Facebook or you've gone to our website, you don't know. And it's very serious. And we know that the Liberal Party, the opposition, had some questions they asked in the House and got this for answers. And I mean, they got this for answers. Oh, lots of nice words. No meat on the bones. Am I correct? No meat on the bones. So as volunteers, we decided to go around the province. So we started in Fredericton. Our first meeting was only 60 people, but it was important because we got the attention of 60, and then the second meeting there was well over 300. And then we went to St. John, well over 300. We went to Moncton, well over 300. Then we went to Edmundston, about 250. Went to Woodstock, the Premier's backyard. So there was about 150 people. Quiet, reserved. But I'll tell you one thing. After we talked about this, they were coming to us at the end of the meeting. And they said, wait a second. This is like another toll bridge in the province of New Brunswick. And this is like another NB tower in the province of New Brunswick. We don't need this. And then we went to Campbellton and Bathurst. Unbelievable amount of support. And people that came out just like this. This is incredible. Standing room only. Are we that good? No, just a joke, okay? You gotta laugh a little. And then we went to Dieppe for a francophone session only. And there it was standing room only, and it was well over 250 people. This morning, or I'm sorry, this afternoon we were in Tracadie. And there was at least 135 people. The room was a little smaller, and it was standing room only. And look at this tonight. So the pension program definitely touches each and every one of you and your friends that are retired, that are not here. So you'll have a job to do after. Okay? Now, normally when I make a presentation, it's a PowerPoint. So I beg you to bear with me, because I'm going to be flipping paper, which I don't normally enjoy doing, but I like to follow the PowerPoint presentation. There's a process to it, and it's informative. So basically, what's the goal of the coalition? It's to call on the Premier and his government to honor their long-standing commitments to retirees. Because we had a contract when we come in to our employment, and when we left, we knew, as Bill said very clearly, we knew exactly what we were supposed to receive as a base benefit, and then we knew that there was going to be indexation to CPI, Consumer Price Index, or the cost of living. And it varied, but it was in the vicinity of 2%. And that's the way it's been for close to 15 years, okay? Now, if the interest rates happen to move up, it may go up to our maximum, which is 5 or 6%, depending on the regime that we are in. Who are we? Bill said it. There's 30,000 of us. 30,000 that represent the PSSA, Public Superannuation Act. The TPA, Teachers Pension Act. There's judges. And then there's people at UNB. There's NB Power. There's all kinds of people in various pension programs that are part of that 30,000. So whenever you hear there's only 13,000, 13 is PSSA only. Add 8,000 teachers, you're at 21,000. And then you build the other programs. There are 12 different pension plans in the province of New Brunswick. So when you combine everything, it's close to 31,000, but we use 30, so we don't exaggerate. It includes widows and widowers. That's very critical. And we made an employment commitment when we began working for the province of New Brunswick, and the government made a commitment to us. We had no choice. When we come into the public service, the money was deducted from our paycheck, period. It's part of the law. It's that simple. It's not negotiated, it's legislated. That's the big difference with our pension plans. On a bi-weekly basis, we had mandatory contributions. We had no choice. Now, the average PSSA, that's Public Service Superannuation Act retiree, so that's one program, one regime. I'm not talking about teachers or anybody else. I'm talking PSSA. That's your public servant in general, okay? The average age of that retiree is 69 years old, and the average pension that retiree receives is 21,000. Those numbers come directly from the notes to the financial statements of the province of New Brunswick in 2011-2012. So we're not making up these numbers. They come directly from the province of New Brunswick. They're their own numbers. And as you know, widows and widowers will receive 50% of the pensioner's pension. That means if the average is 21, then the widow or widower will receive 10,500. That's the way the system is. Our pension is basically guaranteed-based benefits. We knew that when we started working, that we were guaranteed a base benefit based on our salary, the last 5 years of our working career. Not true. That's not true. The best 5 years of our working career, okay? Not necessarily the last. And it was based on 2% per year worked. Simple math. We knew exactly, and guess what? Each and every one of us planned our retirement based on numbers that we knew. Our budgets are based on the numbers that we knew. They weren't fudged, they were told to us and written down on paper. We have guaranteed indexation to CPI, to the cost of living. We know that. Now we know the average is about 2%, has been 2%, and we are maxed or capped at 5 or 6% depending on the regime we represent. We don't want any more, and we don't want any less. All we want is what's been guaranteed to us. Period. You agree with that?
Yes.
I want to hear, do you agree with that? There we go. Now we're talking. I certainly don't want to put anyone to sleep. Now, some of us retired in a pre-retirement package. There were some in 2000 and some in 2004. I left in 2004 on a pre-retirement package called Workforce Adjustment. My colleague, Norm Laverty, who will be speaking next, left on a program called VERB. So, we're both pre-retired civil servants. Now, that pre-retirement package includes an amount of money, an adjustment, that's guaranteed for life, including spouses. We don't know what's going to happen to that with the new shared risk model. We don't know if that amount government will still guarantee. So it's a chunk of money off my pension, I can tell you that. Our pension plans, when we get to 65, it's integrated with the Canada Pension Plan. So whatever you receive, whatever your CPP is, it's integrated so it basically balances out. And then you've got old age that goes to it. What are our fears? That the new model is a done deal. And we're not making this up. Susan Rowland, the chairman of that coalition, the chairman of the working group on pensions, created by the Premier David Alward, basically said publicly that it was a done deal, said in a telephone town hall meeting that people had to call in, that it was a done deal. I met with her with two other of my colleagues and Mr. Paul McCrossan, the actuary, and we were in a 2.5-hour meeting with her, and she said to me and to us, it is a done deal. The Premier has not indicated anything to me, she said, that he's deviating in any way, shape, or form from the new program, the shared risk regime. There's been no transparency, no dialogue, no consultation, and no data. We have asked, and Bill mentioned it, we have asked for reports. Because to me, I don't know, after 30 years in the public service, if someone is on a task force, they're supposed to do their study and provide recommendations. They're not the ones that decide and state publicly that this is a done deal. First of all, it's got to get through the House. Now, let's talk about getting through the House. Do you know what went through the House? Last November. Last November, the Pension Benefit Act. There was an amendment to the Pension Benefit Act. And this is what has fired us tremendously. Two things the government wanted to do. They've done one. We're waiting for the second one. The first one they did is they amended the Pension Benefit Act to ensure that we cannot sue the government because of the changes they're bringing in to the pension program. So what they have done, David Alward, shame on you. Absolutely shame on you and shame on your government for passing an act and an amendment that legalizes robbery, because they're stealing from you and from me. That's what that act does. That amendment gives them permission. My colleague has other words that pertains to what they did. And the second thing they're going to do, and this should be coming to the House, we think, we're not sure and you don't know because you've asked questions, you can't get answers. We think it's coming to the House in June. And that is, they will repeal PSSA and TPA. They will repeal those two acts. Our pension plan, TPA and PSSA, are legislated. By law, they are obliged to give us our base benefits, guarantee the base benefits, any deficiencies they fill. Now, my colleague Norm will talk to you from his perspective as a superintendent of pensions, retired. Okay? So for them to repeal two acts and also a provision in one act that prohibits you from suing them, that's legalized robbery. We have no voice. We do have a voice amongst ourselves, but we have no voice in this process. None whatsoever. Government has gone ahead with the task force, and they've made the decision, and the Premier believes that this is going to be his legacy. At a meeting of the Maritime Premiers, or even Atlantic Premiers, that's one thing that he discussed with his colleagues across Atlantic Canada. New Brunswick is being used as a guinea pig for an implementation of a program that the rest of Atlantic Canada and Canada will want to implement, but it's on New Brunswick's back, and I don't want New Brunswick to be known for that. To remove away your rights is illegal in this society. It's draconian, and it's certainly not democratic. It's a breach of trust by this government on each and every one of you. We have truly been deceived by the Premier. And honestly, this is a one-size-fits-all, this new regime. Every single pension program is going to be forced. You don't have a choice. It's not voluntary. Once they make the decision in the House, it's a done deal. We believe it's a discrimination of retirees, and it's an expropriation of our rights, because you have vested rights as retirees, and it's an expropriation of our rights. And the worst thing is a potential reduction of base benefits. And this is not fear-mongering. The Premier, his government, and Susan Rowland and the task force have been gloating about the Dutch model. How the Dutch model is the best thing on the face of the earth, so on and so forth about the Dutch model. Premier talks about the Dutch model. At the National Summit in February, Dutch model. Let me tell you something about the Dutch model. Last year, the Dutch model performed, one of their regimes, performed at 13.7%. That's a pretty darn good return on money. In my books, 13.7%. This year, no indexation and 0.5% reduction of the base benefits. And next year, it's already planned that there will be no indexation, they're projecting, and they will reduce base benefits by 1.6%. So when you take the total of no indexation and the reduction in base benefits in 2 years, that represents 6.1% reduction on a fund that's performing well, that the province of New Brunswick says on TV, on Lang and O'Leary on CBC, interviewed in the newspaper articles, radio. It will take 8 consecutive years of bad economic performance before we have any reduction on base benefits. Excuse me, somebody's lying somewhere. They just performed at 13.7% in the Netherlands. 13.7, and look at the reductions. We have been performing the New Brunswick Investment Management Corporation, responsible for PSSA, TPA, judges, and a few others. According to the actuarial requirements, they must perform real return of 4% per year. They have been performing at 4.56% per year average. Better than what's been required by law. What is going to happen to our pensions? On the day of conversion, nothing. The day after conversion, hold on to your pens. With the new shared risk program, there will be conditional indexation at 75% of CPI. Now, when we met with Sue Rowland, she says, think about it, 75% of the real cost of living, and if it goes up to 15 or 20%, you're going to get 75% of that. And I said, give your head a shake. When have we seen 15 or 20%? Give your head a shake. So don't give me a carrot and then hit me with a stick. The 2 plans, well, it's a little bit more than 2. There's a few plans, like TPA, PSSA, and a couple of others, the judges and that. Together is a fund of $10 billion. That's not million, that's $billion. That's every 2 weeks what you put in and what government put in to match. Over time has now built up to $10 billion. That is controlled by a crown corporation called NBIMC. They have done extremely well. They've performed extremely well. They've managed the fund extremely well. And it's internal management, meaning it's not done by private sector. It's done by a corporation of the crown. So there's some government oversight, because the governor of the fund is the minister. The Minister of Finance. That's his job, or her job, whoever is. Today it's his. So he is the governor, the trustee of the fund. So there's government oversight. The new governance. One, we know nothing about it. Nothing's been shared. No information. No documentation. No data. Nothing indicating who. But guess what we heard? That Madame Susan Rowland wants to be the governor of the fund. She works for one of Canada's largest law firms. Do you know the largest growth in law firms today? Its pension sector is the largest growth in law firms. Don't you think that $10 billion is a nice round number for her to put her hands on? And administer it from a private sector perspective, not crown, private. John Sinclair, who is the president and CEO of NBIMC, right now in New Brunswick, makes $500,000 a year. That's including his salary and his pension. That's an internal administration and management. The external one in Ontario is done by a private corporation. The guy at the top, just like John Sinclair, makes a salary of $5 million a year. 10 times. Just going from a crown to a private sector. 10 times the salary. What do you think Susan Rowland's looking at? Exactly. Who makes money here? Certainly not the retirees. Lawyers, sorry if there are lawyers in here. Don't jump on me. Accountants, sorry if there are accountants in here. And actuaries. Those three are going to soak that fund. They're going to enjoy. What's 100 or 220 or 250 million in $10 billion? It's nothing. It's 0.01%. What does it mean? It means a lot to us because we've been able to do extremely well and manage the fund really well at 1/10 the cost. And naturally there will be no provincial guarantee. What's our demands? We want honesty and respect. And by the way, we receive neither or neither. I'm a Frenchman, it doesn't really matter. Whichever way. We want fair and equitable treatment. We want an open process. Oh, let's talk about the open process. Guess what the province has decided to do? This is magic. We've been going around the province, and I've listed all the locations we've been at, and we did this on our own dime. No money. Okay? We pay our own gas, and we pay our own food, and we go and do this on a voluntary basis, because we believe you must be informed. So now the province of New Brunswick has just decided that starting tomorrow, the 17th of April, and finishing Saturday, the 20th of April, they will do 7 sessions around the province of New Brunswick. Where the hell did that come from? So there will be a session here in Miramichi on Thursday, April 18th. And please, you go there and make sure there's 2-3 times the amount of people there. And by the way, even though we talk about retirees, do you know that this impacts purchasing power for everybody? Because if you do not spend money in buying goods, the people that are working won't be working, earning a wage. Think about it. You pay taxes. You pay property tax, you pay income tax. You pay HST. So guess what? It doesn't only apply to you, it applies to everyone in the province of New Brunswick. We're lowering the standard of living in New Brunswick by doing this. We're not the ones doing it. Remember, it's a PC government. What else do we want? We want our guaranteed pension with indexation to CPI. At 5% cap or 6%, depending on which pension program we're in. We don't want any more, and we don't want any less. We want what's coming to us. We earned it, and our pension is a deferred earning. A pension is a deferred earning. We want the new model to be on a go-forward basis only. Starting today, if the decision is made in the House tonight, that starting today, going forward, that none of us that are retired are impacted by the changes that the government is bringing forward. And honestly, a deal is a deal. We made a deal when we came in. Many of you could have had jobs elsewhere, most probably at a better salary, but no pension plan, no health benefits, or little. This gave you a balance, and you could look to the future. You didn't have to worry about putting money aside to invest. It was being done for you. You were paying for that every 2 weeks. Don't think, and the general population in New Brunswick does not realize the impact. They don't realize that you've actually put into that fund. Every one of you has put into that fund. And it was obligatory. Now, the Premier has flip-flopped. In May of 2012, when the shared risk model was announced, the Premier stated, and I quote, "We understand that each pension plan must be carefully examined and evaluated on its own terms, and the shared risk model is not a one-size-fits-all." Why do you think nobody reacted? It's going to be, one after another, and, everything is okay. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Well, in front of a national audience with national speakers and national media, the Premier flip-flops. He says, on February 20th, 2013, at the National Summit on Pensions, the Premier stated, "Fortunately, the unions did understand, and the campaign to educate the retirees is ongoing." Were you educated about the pension program? Did you even know about it? No. And then he goes on to say, at the end of the day, this is the best model for New Brunswick. Is that what we're looking for? Legalized robbery? That you have no longer any say? That you have no rights to go and have a suit against the government? And that's legislated. It's dictatorship. It's not democracy. Now we have a call to action. Each and every one of you have more friends than I do. I only have one friend. I'm not very popular. But you are very popular. You all have 5 or 6 or 3 or 4 friends that are retired. I'm directing you to please contact your friends and tell those friends to tell 3 or 4 others, each of them, about this. To go on our website, which is www, and it's on your sheet of paper, pensioncoalitionnb.ca. There's a lot of information. A lot. And you can tell that the website is not a bilingual website. We're trying to put as much French information as possible as we receive it. We're trying to translate some of the most important commentaries and articles that people are writing, because our Francophone counterparts, some of them have difficulty, and they like to read a French article, which is fine. We're doing the best we can, and I'll be asking something of you in a few minutes. We want you, each and every one of you. You have a gentleman right here who is your MLA. So guess what? Every single one of you need to contact your MLA by telephone, by knocking on the door. And you want a meeting. By sending emails. By sending letters. You need to do this on a weekly basis. Do you know why? Because as we've been going around the province, the Premier, his government, and the task force keep saying that this is only a Fredericton problem. This is not spread throughout the province. There's just a few people in Fredericton that are upset, and they're concerned that they're going to lose $1 off their pension. I think that that's rather ignorant. It's not respectful of who we are in any way, shape, or form. We also, if you don't have a computer and you can't go on Facebook or on our website, we'd like you to call a toll-free number, so there's no long-distance charges, and it's also on your sheet. It's 855-455-7892, or the local number, which is 455-7892. With that, I will end this part and turn the table over, or the mic over, to Nora Laverty.
I retired as Superintendent of Pensions for the province, but I began as information officer for the Department of Pensions, and some of you may have been on one of my seminars in which this is back in 1987, and the early 90s, okay, in which in my seminars, I would try to convince you what a great pension plan you had. Because the province at that time was very proud of its pension plan and wanted its employees to know that, because we wanted to attract good employees and keep good employees. And that's part of personnel policy. It's also a social policy in that generally it's recognized by authorities on pension plans that you need three things for retirement. You need the government pensions, such as the federal old age pension and the supplement. You need your own savings, but you also need an employer pension plan. Okay? And so, as an example, not only to the public sector, but also to the private sector, the province has a pension plan to encourage the private sector to have also this, because then we have a civilized society when we are ready to retire. Okay? So that's part of my stint, is I went around telling people that what we had was a great pension plan and it was guaranteed and so forth. When I got home from Christmas, because I had family in central Canada, is that I found out that that was not so. The guarantee was going, there was a danger that the guarantee would be removed. Okay? Now, we are here to give information, hopefully that will be helpful to you, and not to scare people or to create fear. But we would try to encourage people, as has been said on a number of occasions, to contact your MLA, but also to write a letter to the Premier, and maybe if you can get to a photocopy that and give that to your MLA to let him know or her know that you have written the Premier, and maybe they can follow up on that either by asking questions in the legislature or by contacting them through other arrangements. It's very important that you communicate with the politicians because they have ability to do something about this to some extent, and especially the Premier, okay, because this is his little project, as we've heard. And I'll just remind you repeat the story, that he was in a meeting with other premiers, and he said that he was going to go ahead with this, and they said, oh, you think you can do that? Well, let us know when you get it done, because then we'll do the same thing, okay? And so he has a person, we believe, okay, that he has a personal an investment in this. On the other hand, it's also possible that he's just being misled by his advisors, okay? And let us go over some of the points that might be misleading him. One is, pensions is a very complicated area because it mixes at least three different domains. It mixes the legal domain with a branch of mathematics called actuarial science, and also the investment domain. Okay? Now, in the legal domain, they think that they can do this, and maybe that's true. We're looking at different possibilities in terms of bringing it to court or bringing it before some authority, either administrative, such as the Labor and Employment Board, or in the courts. Okay, we're looking at that possibility to see whether this can be modified or stopped in some way by that area. But let me just go through some of the points of this. It's generally recognized in the decisions by courts that pension plans are trusts. It also states that exactly in the law, not only in the Public Service Superannuation Act and in the Teachers Pension Act and in the Pension Benefits Act, it states that these are trusts. Okay? Now, in a trust, it's like a play of which there are three characters. there is a settler, sometimes called a sponsor, and there's a trustee, and there's a beneficiary. Okay? Now, in the case of the pension plan, it tends to, the settler and the trustee tend to be the same person. Now, the settler sets up the rules. The trustee is in charge of governing the property of the pension plan. But in a trust, this is a general, you must do this. Your first duty is to do this for the beneficiaries, not against them. Okay? Your first duty is to the beneficiaries. So when the Minister of Finance gets up and says that he has to look after the taxpayers, that's fine in a political sense, and he does. But if you're going to remain as trustee, legally, you have to look after the interests of the beneficiaries. And not to do so is a breach of trust. Now, whether that is a crime under the Criminal Act, we don't know, we're investigating that. And whether the people who are advising on this are part of a conspiracy about that, we don't know that either, but we're looking at that. That's some of the tactics that we're looking at. Essentially, when a trust is violated, as in any sort of illegal business, such as a Ponzi scheme, some other fraudulent type business, okay, someone loses. And under this, even though they are trying to make it look as if the probability of us losing is very small, okay, it has already happened in Holland that people's pensions have been reduced, even though that was not supposed to happen unless the economic situations became very dire. Now, the advisor to the Premier on this, Mr. Paul McCrossan, who is an actuary, said that was the case, that the situation in Europe has got very bad. Okay? But if they're earning 13.5% on their investments, it doesn't sound that bad. Okay? Now, with respect to our pension plan, looking at the domain of investment, how are our investments doing? Okay, like everyone knows that if you were in the market, in the stock market in around 1999 and around there was a fall then, and then in 2008 there was another fall, and it doesn't look like it was that good. However, in the 1990s, the stock market was quite good. Okay? And over the years, it goes up and it goes down and so forth. Now, our pension plan started back in the mid-1930s. Not a great time for economic situation. Right in the middle of the Depression. Not only was it in the middle of the Depression, and when they created the pension plan, everybody who had service in the pension plan at that time, even though they had not paid for it, were given credit for that service. So that even in austere situations as the Great Depression, the government felt that for the good of society, that it would recognize the service of its employees up until that time and put the plan in a deficit at that time. So they were willing to take that chance. Now, getting up further along, we went through the Second World War, okay, where there was a fair amount of inflation, which is usually dangerous to pension plans, okay? But the greatest amount of inflation was in the 70s, in which it was tremendously high. As you remember, it went up into the teens, almost reaching 20%. And the pension plans survived that. Now, in 1987, when I started as an information officer, it was at the same time, and I mention it here in Chatham, I'm not a liberal, nor do I like everything that Frank McKenna did. But when he got into office, his government faced the problem straight on. He said, we need to put more money in the pension plan. And they made a 25-year plan, and they followed that plan to make up the deficit. Why? Because it was the right thing to do. Okay? Now, as it turned out, the stock market turned out to be better than they thought, and it was all paid off in 15 years. So it can be done. And if we're in a difficult economic situation now, that hopefully would change. If the whole economic system is going to completely collapse, well, let's look at that problem when it happens. Now, the actuary who has been servicing the pension plan for a number of years, his name is Conrad Ferguson, and he may be at the meeting. I had a conversation with him before I left government, and he said he had done a study from about 1890 up until the present. And there hasn't been a 35-year period in history, which is the length of a career, or in terms of contributing to a pension plan, in which the stock market wasn't the best investment available. Not buying money in housing, not buying money in stock or in bonds, but having a broad investment across all investments in the stock market. Now, in the paper the government has put out, they said they're going to choose less volatile investments. That, it may be good for small investors, but it's not a very good tactic for large investments like a pension plan. You must think about a pension plan in a much different way. You want to have a very broad sector, okay? And what the government has done up till now has been excellent, okay? In terms of how they've been able to manage the plan. Now, so they say, well, the things are very bad now, okay? According to the actuarial evaluation, the plan is supposed to earn on a real basis. That means the interest rate less inflation, 4%. Okay? What it actually has earned is 4.56%. Is that a crisis? If you're making more, 0.5% higher than you're supposed to make? Now, that's not the only thing they use to manufacture a crisis. As where is it now? Clifford started out there, he said, "You're living too long. That's what's the problem. You're living too long." And it says in the papers for the notes that they hand out to their employees, no one could have predicted this. Okay? It is true that people are living longer and longer, but we knew this 35 years ago. Okay? The demographers, the Actuarial Society, they all knew this. Now, it is true that when they do the valuation of the pension plan, there are three types of valuations. Okay? One is called a solvency valuation, which is done as if the plan was going to wind up and everybody was going to be paid out their money. Okay? And if they did that, that would be fine. The only problem with that is we have $10 billion in the plan, but we need $20 billion to pay out what they owe everybody. Okay? There's a second type of valuation called a going concern valuation. Okay? And that is as if the plan was going to continue forever and ever, taking into account new employees coming in and old employees going out and so forth. Okay? And in that sense, it is, and these are actuarial valuations, and they put lots of cushions in these. Okay? And so it's a little short on that too. Okay? What is it?
83.6.
83.6% funded. Okay? But that's not, but what the province has used over the years with great success is what they call an accounting valuation. And rather than putting cushions in there or contingencies, they try to estimate it right on the line to save the taxpayers the most money. okay? And so that's what they've been using to fund the plan, okay? So you have to be careful when they sort of breed fear themselves, okay? They say you're living too long, okay? And they've known about that for 35 years, okay? Or they say that the plan is short-funded, but they're using a different method than they used all along. Because they want to create the atmosphere where they can get rid of this plan. And breed fear into you people that you've got to do something, otherwise it's going to be a catastrophe. Why are they doing this? Gary doesn't want me to say, but you can guess.
No, I'm not going to say it. I don't care. It's your opinion.
Anyway, there's probably a number of reasons where this is being pushed. Certainly, there is in North America at the present time a very ultra-conservative ideology that's dominant. Okay? And it's more conservative than what the conservatives were in the past. We're not talking about the Hatfield conservatives and the Robert Stanfields anymore. We're talking about sort of an American conservatism, which I guess is incorporated in the Tea Party, okay, in which they don't want government to do anything, okay, except shoot the people that are robbing, okay. I mean, if the rich want to be protected, they want police protection, but that's all they want, okay. But in terms of having a hospital system that works, having a pension system that works, having a school system that works, they don't want that. They want all that to be privatized. Okay? So that's, and different people in this different ideology see that that ideology helps their economic interest or something like that, and you can guess who might be pushing the government to go down this road.
We are asked when we're going out to the various sessions is, what's the position of the various political parties? Well, now you know the PC position. We've received, I think even all of you may have had an opportunity to read, that the leader, and now, officially the new leader, Brian Gallant, has put out a news release in English and in French in regards to where the Liberal Party is coming from. And at this point, I'll give Mr. Bill Fraser the opportunity to say a few words.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to address everybody here. This is a very, very serious concern, and it goes far beyond what's going to take place with everybody that's receiving a pension in this room. It goes far beyond that. It goes to the very democracy that we live in, and to government respecting contracts, and to trying to attract new companies here, trying to attract new businesses here, and making contracts with them. Nobody's going to have any trust in our province or in our government if we allow this to go through. First of all, when this first came out in 2012, we were told three things. We were told by the government MLAs and by the Premier that this would be a voluntary type fund, which we now know it's not. We were told that it would be open and transparent, as you heard here tonight. We were told that all of the questions that people have will be answered. We were told that all the facts and figures will be made available. As a sitting MLA, I can't even get that information. So I don't know how you're going to get it if I can't get it in the Legislative Assembly. We were also told that this would not affect current beneficiaries or people currently receiving benefits. And now we know that that's not true. I can tell you that our stance and our new leader and our new MLA who was elected last night in Kent, Brian Gallant, our stance is this is fundamentally wrong, it's morally wrong, it's unconscionable, and quite frankly, it's illegal. It's illegal. In my role in the Assembly, I'm also the Opposition House Leader, so I have to meet on a regular basis with the Premier's office to discuss the legislative agenda. And I can tell you that at the beginning of the session, we were told there was going to be 35 to 40 pieces of legislation. I'm never told what the particulars are, but I always ask. And one of the pieces of legislation that I told that was coming in very early was changes to the Pension Act. Nothing's been brought forward yet. In fact, since we've sat, there might have been two, maybe three pieces of legislation that mean nothing that have been brought forward by this government. Right now we're in budgetary estimates. We're on break week this week except for committee work. I was in committee today until 5 doing budgetary estimates for the Department of Transportation. I've got to go back tonight after this meeting for health estimates tomorrow. But the rest of this week we're in estimates for the budget. Next week we're back in the Assembly. It doesn't look like there's any more legislation coming forward. Next week we're back into budgetary estimates. And I think you're absolutely right. We're going to be looking at June before they introduce this. And there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is so that people are on their summer vacations, people are getting their cottage routines, they're not paying attention. And MLAs are in the legislature, they want to get out because they've been there all summer. They turn the thermostats up so it's really hot in there. And they try to push it through as quickly as we can. So that's the reason. That's the reason why there's nothing out there yet. It's coming out in June. I can tell you my commitment here tonight, I'm with you. That's why I'm here. I'm here to support you. And I'll fight this every step of the way. The only other thing I want to say, and it was already said here, and it's extremely important, the only way you're going to stop this is to speak up. And you're going to have to speak to all of the MLAs. You're going to have to talk to Minister Travers on the other side. He's part of this government. You're going to have to talk to Jake Stewart. You're going to have to talk to Serge Robichaud, who are the 3 government-sitting MLAs for this region. And you're right. They did say this was a Fredericton issue. It's not affecting anybody else in the province. It's just a few civil servants in Fredericton. Well, I'm told the average pension is about $20,000. And people have spent their entire careers and their lives for New Brunswick and working for the civil service. And they left there based on a pension that they understood was guaranteed to them. They planned their life around that, they have expenses around that, and it's unconscionable to go back and have that pension reduced. So I'm with you, but everybody has to stand up. I can't do it alone. There's 13 members in the Legislative Assembly, well 12 right now, there's going to be 13 on April 30th when Brian Glenn's sworn in, and all 13 of us will fight this every step of the way, but we need each and every one of you to be there with us. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Norm spoke to the issue. And it's just a point, maybe it's not that important, but you said that McKenna proposed to make the plan stable in 25 years. Is that the part of the government or departments, their contribution? Like, we understood years ago that they didn't always make the contribution. So has that all been paid back into the plan to be invested? Do you understand that?
Yes, we understand the question. Norm?
First of all, let me explain the 25 years. When the McKenna government came into power, they did an analysis of this, and what they were short, they weren't going to pay it off in 1 year. They proposed a plan to pay it off in 25 years, and it was all paid off around 1996. The plans were all up to date. Not necessarily on an actuarial basis, but they were on an accounting basis, okay? Which means that the assumptions were a little bit more, the assumptions are based on the best target, not on a cushion, okay? However, that 25 years is an important concept because if there's problems now, okay, they don't have to pay the whole thing off right away. They could do the same thing again, okay? And look at, if there's a deficit, they could amortize that the way you do a mortgage over another 25 years. And then if they're still short next year, they can readjust that. That's normally what's done, except under the Pension Benefits Act, you're not allowed to take 25 years, you're only allowed to take 15. Okay? And with a solvency valuation, you're only allowed to take 5. Now, those were, looked to me personally, to be a little bit too strict, okay, for a company that's fairly viable, that they would have to be solvent within a 5-year period. And a lot of private companies have had difficulty with that. So, but the government is not subject to the Pension Benefits Act at the moment, okay? They could take longer periods, and generally speaking, 25 years is probably the optimum period, because if you take more than that, you're just sort of paying interest on interest. So that 25 years could be used again. But I think, so I've said more than your question, but I'm not sure I answered it. At one point it was paid off around 1995, as my understanding was. And everything was, and when, like in the teacher's plan, they didn't pay any money into the pension plan until 1977, okay? So all of these plans started off in deficit because during the Depression, they awarded free service. But by 1995, because of the measures that one of the Liberal governments took and facing the question head on, it was paid off.
I just wanted to say that I just got involved with the Pension Coalition at the beginning of April, probably, and that the Pension Coalition website is full of information. When he says that, you know, there's stuff there, there's information on all of this information that was passed out tonight, as well as much more. The Facebook page has dialogue on it. There's dialogue between people who have are making comments on what's happening, what's not happening, and what they think should happen. And the other thing is that I have written my MLA, and I did get a response back. It was and my MLA was Sarah Senwa, and he basically said that he would bring the information up to the people that needed to know. That's the basic information that everybody else is getting back. It's almost like a form letter that they're getting back when they do write. I also wrote to the paper, and my letter was in, I think, Friday's paper, and it also, on the coalition page, there's 4 sample letters.
Yes, there are 3 English, and now we're going to have 3 Francophone
Right.
letters.
So the letters are there. All you have to do is copy them and paste them and send them to your MLA. But make sure that you do write your MLAs, as Mr. Fraser said. Contact the paper if you can, so that it's front and center. Glenn was saying that the government is watching the Facebook page, so anything that appears on that page is part of what the government is seeing. I am the administrator of that page, and I approve who is accepted, and so far I've accepted 101%. I think it was close to so please, I urge you to do all of the above. And when I did write to people who are not on Facebook, who I know don't have computers, I also sent them copies of the information, friends of mine, and I did include the 3 or 4 of the reporters that I know. So I have a nephew that works for the Gleaner, a very, very good friend, Gail Savoy, that works for, well, she's Gail Harding now, Gail Harding, that works for the Moncton Times, and the local paper. So contact your reporters, contact everybody that you can, and give them hell.
Wow, I like that.
With the mention of form letters, the problem of getting back a form letter from the government, it reminded me of a tactic how to fight that to some extent, okay? One is, as you were listening to the meeting tonight, and you didn't ask your question, but if you did have a question and you were too scared, don't forget that question, okay? Because when you write a letter to the Premier, okay, add your question, if you have 2 or 3, even better, because that makes your letter completely different than everybody else's letter, okay? If you can be creative about the question you want to ask, and it can be exact whatever you want. Then if you get a form letter back from that, then you either write them back, or you phone, better still, you phone them back and say, your letter is unacceptable because you didn't answer my question. And keep that up. The other thing is when you send a letter to the Premier, I would suggest that you also send a copy, either by email or other mail, to your MLA, plus the leaders of all the political parties, okay, so that they're aware that the public is not happy about this question, okay? So those are some hints that I would give.
Excellent, thank you very much, Norm. Anybody else a question? Feel free. Yes, sir. And speak loud.
Something Bill may be familiar with, but in order to get a pension with the MLAs, they must stay there for, what, 4 or 8 years?
Correct.
Most of the Conservatives now in-house don't have those years.
Correct.
Maybe we should explain very kindly to them, when is the next election? Yep. 2 years? No, that in that time, that these old pensioners don't die, maybe we will be there. And, you know, have a plan that we really, they've got to know that there's consequences if they don't get off of the...
Absolutely. Thank you very, very much. That's perfect. Yes, sir, and you after.
Will you have anybody at the meeting Thursday evening that would be able to contradict some of the information?
The answer is yes. We have someone at every single meeting. Although I live in Fredericton, I'm going to the Moncton meeting with another colleague. And there may be others that will be doing that also. But there's definitely someone coming here for the Thursday evening meeting. Guaranteed. Yes, sir.
Can I just say something?
Oh, one moment.
Just a comment on that. I know what you're getting at because I expect these guys at the meetings, the government information sessions will use a lot of numbers and those kinds of things. Personally, I think we're beyond the number stuff. I mean, we've heard a lot of numbers over the last while, and certainly Norm gave us a bunch of numbers tonight here. I really think where we are is we're the next step beyond that. It's very simple. You know, we came to work, we were told what we were going to get, they took money away from us in order to get that, and at the end of our career, we expect a pension, and that's what we want. That's all we want. We don't want anything besides what we deserve to get. So I don't think we need to worry too much about, I know, like I plan to be here, but if that comes up, like I'm going to say, look, I'm not interested in that stuff. I just want what I deserve to get. And keep it really simple. And that's what, nobody should be afraid to keep it simple, because that's what it is. It's a real simple thing that we're talking about now.
Absolutely. And by the way, when you arrive at the location for the meeting, the Coalition will be there. Yes. The Coalition will be there to pass out a statement that the Coalition will be saying at that meeting that night. So we have already a planned statement that will be made at every single session throughout the province of New Brunswick. And let me tell you that today when we were in Tracadie, the people were extremely upset that there is no session in the Acadian Peninsula. And I can tell you that Paul Robichaud, because I have my phone with me and I get my email, I know he's already received some emails because I'm getting copied by the people that were at the meeting saying how come there's not a session, and we are demanding a session in the Acadian Peninsula.
What about current employees? Are they not getting involved?
Thank you very much. Very, very good question. Now, everybody, the politicians, meaning the existing government, believe, along with the task force, that we, the retirees, we only think about ourselves. We don't think about anybody else. Well, that's not true, because you've heard it tonight from Norm, and you've heard it from your MLA. Clearly, we think about New Brunswick, and we think about existing employees that have a minimum of 5 years, because you can start getting your pension. So 5, 10, 20, 25, 33 years. They're about to retire next year or the year after. What's going to happen to them? They're concerned. They're very, very concerned. And we're concerned for them too. We're concerned for everybody. But all service to date, we say, has to be respected and no retroactivity. Period. Does that answer your question? Okay, next question. Yes, ma'am.
I've been writing the MLAs, and I got a reply back saying that if I was in her constituency, she'd be happy to have me visit her. And if I wasn't, she would give me the name of mine. Well, I didn't have one until last night, so.
Okay, but now you do?
Well, Brian
Yes.
was in Canton
Okay,
last night.
excellent. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I was with NB Power when they marched on Fredericton. That was a powerful experience. Are we planning to gather in Fredericton at any time?
I love it. I love this kind of energy. You know what? I used to be a civil servant. Now I'm an activist. Yeah. All right, heckle. Okay, let's address your question. We indicated from the beginning that we've used all of the medias that we can, but you know what? We weren't getting a lot of traction at the beginning because this was only a Fredericton problem. There was only a few civil servants in Fredericton that the government said they're just, complaining if they lose a buck. Don't worry about them. All of a sudden, now government realized that there's all of this. We want to do another round of these meetings, but we also want to protest that, okay? And we want to protest at the legislature. And that takes a lot of organizing. You just don't say, show up tomorrow. It ain't going to happen. We need buses. We need to truck people from all over the province of New Brunswick. I want 2,500, 3,000 people. Absolutely. And that have voices and aren't afraid to express themselves. And you won't be afraid to express yourself because I'll be right next to you. They'll think it's you, not me, because you're taller than I am. I'm a short little guy. So yes, we are planning that, and we're planning on getting much more visibility in the media. Okay? They're starting to believe us that this is not a Fredericton issue. All that the media has to do is look at what we've got here tonight. Now, there was a media person here earlier. Is that person still here or gone? Left. One media person showed up today, here. None in the Acadian Peninsula. One in some of the other meetings. The media really, this was not news. There was no traction, but now there is traction. And especially when Bill talks in the House and says, I was at a meeting, it was standing room only, and this is the way it's been throughout the province of New Brunswick for the last 6 weeks. This is not a Fredericton problem. It's a provincial problem that impacts everybody, not just the retirees. Existing workers included. There's no trust, there's a breach of trust, and we're deceived by the Premier and his government. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
The name shared risk gives you the idea that the government's going to be part of it. Was that a ploy on their part to make that name to give everybody the impression they're going to be in it as well?
The government will have an obligation to put in their contribution, but the risk will be shared by you.
Yeah.
So you share it with her with him, and you with her. And that's how we're sharing the risk amongst ourselves. That's not a joke, that's a fact.
Just one more item that before we spoke about what we're going to do. When that crew shows up, they're going to send some civil servants over here to BS, as Joe said. I think we should make sure that they go back to Fredericton well informed that we are finished, over. This happened before, and I thought I'd bring it up. There was a guy sent over from Fredericton to convince us about the ambulance service. And when he came, and his name was Mr. Hilaire, and when he went back to Fredericton, he was a she-bear.
I gotta salute that. Wow, we are in the Miramichi. Yes, sir.
With all due respect to the fact that we have a politician here tonight, PC, Liberals, you name the party. And what they all do, once they get elected, is that suddenly they become stupid, become cheap, and they follow along. Now, I hope Mr. Fraser does what he says he does, but he's a politician, and it seemed to me when Brunswick said last year that we did not want to sell NB Power. I wonder what his view was. So, not just to pick on Mr. Fraser, but to pick on all of us in our next choice of who we vote for, and let's really think about it to get people, at least my definition of democracy was people who work for us. We're the people. And so I like the idea here of us speaking up. Let's get the message out to all parties. You better listen.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bill Fraser will be
Well, certainly I want to thank you for your comments, and that's exactly the reason I'm here tonight. And you're absolutely right, there was an issue with the last government, and they paid the consequences. That's why we're down to 12 MLAs right now. And the same consequences should apply here. And every MLA should be here, not just me. So I agree with you. That's why I'm here. I'm here to listen, I'm here to support you, and I will speak up when I go back to the Legislative Assembly. That's why you elected me to do that, and that's what I'm here to do.
And you're honest.
There you go.
Thank you for that comment. On the other side of things, it's normal for a political party to have its own internal solidarity and have a public face. And it's been indicated to us that there isn't unanimity in the Conservative Party on this issue. So if you're in a riding that has a Conservative member, keep pestering that person, because that person attends a caucus and they will bring up their concerns inside that caucus. They may not say it publicly, but that's the way political parties work. So keep the pressure up.
Yes, and I absolutely, totally agree. And let me tell you what happened in St. John. There was a lady, teacher I believe, and she's in the riding of Minister Fleming, the Minister of Health. And she went up and she said, I met with him and he told me clearly this is not a done deal. There's all kinds of discussions and discourse within the cabinet and within caucus. However, ask anyone a question and you're getting towing the line. Towing the line. But keep plugging. If you don't keep plugging, you won't break the line. You got to break that line. Okay? And do what Bill just indicated and what the gentleman back there said. We understand. You need honesty as a representative, and Bill Fraser traveled from Fredericton to come here and to go back tonight. So if that's not dedication, I don't know what is.